So I started thinking about this talk many weeks ago, thinking, oh, I have this in the bag. I talk every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for like 5 hours on the subject of architecture and design and how we get buildings built, how we raise the community through a building. Oh yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about. And then I had a kind of moment sometime earlier this week and said, you know, these kinds of talks ought to be about a journey, that people should feel like you're talking with them. And I'm like, oh, that's, you know, not all of you are going to turn out to be architects, so that's not a really good talk. So I'm looking back to what is a topic matter that I feel like is a journey for me. And that's actually a lovely moment because I don't often think and reflect on what kind of journey am I on at this moment. And so I wanted to talk about something called being an oddball outsider and then turning it into an advantageous alien. If you'll go to the next slide. So I have this kind of crazy history like all of you. I feel like I'm in the same alien platform here. Where at a very tender age of 3, my young parents then dragged a couple of babies to the United States, not because they were world travelers, but because they were economic migrants to this country. And I feel like those words were always emblazoned in our family, and you shall forever be assigned the titles of, well, you're a foreigner, you're an alien to this country. So when I thought, interesting, I'm going to be an alien, does that mean like in the country of the US there are just really wonderful and colorful people that look different? In a 3-year-old's mind, that sort of imaginative quality, not really fully understanding the language, is an important moment because I relish that idea. I relish the idea of taking this big plane and traveling across the world and landing somewhere where everyone will look different. So this map kind of represents sort of some of the travels and identities that's represented in my family. So myself, born and raised in Seoul, Korea. We moved. If you'll go to the next slide. I thought these were the Americans. I thought we are going to celebrate color and we are going to look different from each other. I still have this memory of this idea that I see people through the lens of this kind of fascination. If you'll go to the next slide. So therefore when I landed, other people had imagined I'd look like this. Right? You're so different. What are you? How are you? The idea that aliens are some sort of extraterrestrial being. We live here in New Mexico where we celebrate this identity. So as a small child, unfortunately, it's not a funny matter, but one that sort of makes you feel like a lesser being, a lesser character, a lesser citizen, until one day, maybe if you're lucky in this country, they sort of assign you a different status, a status of citizenship. But before that, you are always contending with issues of me against the world. I'm the outside, and there must be millions who somehow magically reside in the inside. So that kind of identity I carry with me everywhere I've gone. So if you'll go back to the 2 slides, I'm sorry. So from there in America, though inside, I feel incredibly raised by the culture of the Midwest, which is Chicago right there. I've moved around several times inside the country, but ultimately then find myself a migrant worker myself, a bit like my parents to the United States, because of the economic crises, and I have this thing called a degree, and I have the transferable skills of software knowledge and being able to operate and manipulate tools. As an architect, I was invited to the country of Germany, where I know many of my new friends are located. There I was able to be an American in Germany. Many of the things were that the Germans were not really ready to accept an Asian-looking American. And they were like, no, you're not American. I'm sure you're not. Where are you from? Like, I was originally born in Korea, but raised in America. Oh, so that means you're not Chinese. I'm like, yes, not Chinese. That means you're not Japanese. No, you're not Japanese, right? The other thing is that I happened to be working and living just as the fall of the wall, and I had the pleasure of being able to live for 10 years in what was then, but is no longer, of course, East Berlin. And in that city, it's a very interesting population, and many of them hadn't seen too many diverse-looking people for many, many years. And I love the idea that they thought, are you Mongolian? No, you possibly could be Russian, right? Maybe Tajikistani. So their perception of my migration was directly from the eastern side, but what really was represented is my migration went the other way through North America. Having said that, feeling very much like an outsider for many, many years, at the same time, my better half, my husband, was himself making a migratory trip. His family was based in Wolfsburg in Germany. His family is American by every standard sort of definition, and he himself an American child but born in Germany. And after 10 years, they moved back, if you'll go to the following slides, to middle America, to Missouri. So an American family repatriated themselves to the middle of the country in Missouri, in a place called Bolivar, named after Simon Bolivar, but you can imagine they called it Bolivar, Missouri. So he came, an American boy, back to Bolivar. And being the whitest of white kids, he himself was deeply scarred by how our country had treated him. Instead of welcoming him back and his family, they often called him the Nazi boy. Why are you here? So even no matter what you look like, everyone wears and feels the pains of the outsider. If you'll go forward. So it's funny, that's the beautiful thing about growing up. When you talk to other adults, you find everyone at one point or another has felt the numbers stacked against them, having felt alien, having felt foreign, having been felt less than. And so we ended up finding ourselves together, making the rest of our journey to Texas, Austin, and then on to Lubbock, Texas, even smaller, and then here to Albuquerque. So as we make all these traverses, and having felt not quite at home at any given moment, it's always interesting. I always thought, oh, gosh, I'm always the one that's the different one in every meeting. But what's been really, really interesting is that in 2015, I have this generous offer to be invited back, next slide, to my home country of Korea as a foreign scholar, to a Korean institution. And then for sure, after many decades of travels and working around the world, I thought, okay, here I will now feel at home, right? I certainly pass, right, in amongst those pictures. And I had this strange sense of feeling like everybody else as I entered the airport for the first time. And then until I went to get a cup of coffee before I left the airport at Starbucks, and they were speaking to me in Korean. And then I did this funny little foreign shake, like, can I tell you cafe mocha, please? Right, I couldn't express myself in the native tongue, nor with the native inflections. right? So again, this sense of I'm back, I made the full circle, and I'm no longer in the circle, even there. So the idea that the journey that I've been on, and as you find yourself becoming this incredibly wonderful global citizen, the sense of outsider might prove to be something interesting to reflect on. So what does that mean now? Wait, do you mind? Next slide. The breakthrough is that if you're so agile at being an outsider, being an alien, you have discovered all the useful tools and tactics for being the most encouraging, possibly most helpful, possibly the most engaged and ready to learn who else is sitting in the room, that you find yourself being some of the best ambassadors, a representation of some of the thoughts that are represented in the room, that you might find yourself, the baggage that you have as an outsider is really a toolkit of how to engage the world in the best way possible, so that from the room you find yourself performing little acts of micro diplomacy where you are bridging the gap. So thank you.
Thank you.